Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues now. And make sure to stay tuned to catch me, Mike Gallagher, coming up at 9, only on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And we're going to talk to Steve Moore in a second. I want to talk to him about two topics. Obviously, Trump's tax plan, but the play that Illinois is making, and Chicago specifically, to land Amazon HQ2. 500,000 square feet of office space, upwards of 50,000 jobs.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And Governor Rauner and Mayor Emanuel went to Seattle together.
Yeah, so that's
last week.
So now a bunch of big names have been enlisted to try and woo Amazon. Of course, you've got
Michael Jordan.
I haven't seen Jordan, although that's probably a good addition. That would be a good addition.
Coach Ditka.
Ditka would be a good addition.
Ditka.
Right now, they've got United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz.
Okay.
Former U.S. Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker.
Is this the starting lineup? Oh, Penny Pritzker. Of course, Penny Pritzker.
Jim Reynolds, Loop Capital Chairman, Abbott Chairman, CEO Miles White, and then Tiny Dancer, Governor Rauner. You know, I understand from...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Tiny Dancer?
Tiny Dancer, Governor Rauner, the politicians, blah, blah, blah. The problem is, it's almost, if we could get the politicians out of the way and just have, like, we've got so many incredible developers, and I'm aware of some ideas that people that are actually professionals in the space have that could accommodate Amazon's needs, and maybe in conjunction with the politicians, if they were just told what to do rather than being at the tip of the spear, maybe actually land this thing in spite of our hostile business climate in Illinois. I mean, Jeff Bezos has proven by buying the Amazon Post that he doesn't care about making money. So there actually is the space to have to meet Amazon's needs in the city.
Right.
So it could really
South
be a
Loop,
boon.
West Side. Yep.
I just wish that's the private sector, and I don't mean like private sector like Penny Pritzker or even like, these airline CEOs. I'm talking about like the entrepreneurial, developer, creative private sector who knows what they're talking about.
President Obama, one of them?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about him.
That's kind of a big deal. I mean, don't you think?
Well, I'm afraid that he'll have the same success he did bringing the 2016 Olympics to Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Mayor Daley. That was oof.
Although, but
Obama's star power might work a little.
But Obama's included in that list as well. But I mean, again, that's a good example. I rather, instead of people who don't know what they're talking about, the people who do know what they're talking about leading the team and the direction for the politicians who usually gum things up in this state. For more on this topic and the tax plan, we're pleased to be joined by Heritage Foundation economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, Stephen Moore. Steve, thanks for being with us.
Hi, guys, and someone who does know what they're talking about.
Yeah, correct. You are in that.
You should be in the fight.
Yeah, what about...
You're from here.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Why don't you and Art and Larry and Mal and Steve come over to Chicago and help some of the real estate professionals try and land this Amazon HQ. Do something for your home state.
Well, I think you guys need to do stuff for your own state there as well.
Oh, yeah.
But look, we're happy campers that, Laffer and Kudlow and I and Forbes. This tax plan that came out yesterday is going to be the best tax cut since Reagan. And it's funny, I was on, you weren't watching because you were on the air, but I was on CNN about a half hour ago, and Chris Cuomo, who's, the host of that show, he's like, isn't this just going to be a redux of what Reagan did in the 1980s and, voodoo economics? And I said, I sure hope so.
Yeah, right.
The biggest boom in our country's history, when Reagan cut taxes. And I said, Chris, and, I know he barely got reelected. I mean, he only won 49 states after he did the tax cut. But look, I think I'm really proud of what these guys have come up with. I was nervous about it. And the funny thing is, as you know, Larry and I worked with Trump during the campaign to come up with a plan. And so 9 months into his presidency, they've been, behind closed doors, secret meetings, blah, blah, blah. And now they've come up with, a plan that's pretty much exactly the one that we, helped put together for him during the campaign. We're going to have the lowest business tax rate in the world. We're going to go from the highest to the lowest, worst to first. There will be a middle-class tax cut. So if you're making anywhere between, I'd say, $40,000 and $100,000, you're going to get about $2,500 to $3,000 off your taxes. And it's going to bring a lot of jobs back home. We can't compete in these global markets with a tax rate of 40% around the world. The rest of the world's at 20%.
Well, and the other thing, too, for the kind of the class envy crowd, the fair share crowd, it's going to encourage repatriation of corporate profits. I mean, Apple alone, you're talking about maybe upwards of a quarter of
Yep.
of a trillion, quarter of a trillion dollars.
Quarter trillion, yeah. They've said, Tim Cook said in the Wall Street Journal 3 weeks ago, we'll bring about $250 billion back. We estimate, the total is going to be about $2 to $3 trillion. Now, by the way, just one little facet of this, just because I know you have a very educated audience and they follow this stuff closely. It's called a deemed repatriation, which is a fancy term for meaning you're going to pay that 10% tax whether you bring the money back or not. So we're going to raise about. People say, "Oh, it's going to inflate the deficit." It's not going to inflate the deficit. We're going to get about $250 billion from that money that is stored in these offshore bank accounts. Then we're going to grow the economy at 3 to 3.5%. That gets us another $2 to $3 trillion. And then we're going to take away. The other thing is, the one line the left is going to use over and over again is tax cuts for the wealthiest. I was reading the front page of the.
No, it's going to make the rich richer. Blah blah.
Yeah,
blah.
the rich richer. But here's the thing, and this is important for people to realize. What we did in this plan, and this is what the Gang of Six, the congressional leaders in Trump, came out with yesterday. Yeah, if you're making $1 million a year or more, you're going to see your tax rate go from 39.6, about 40% down to 35. But you're going to start losing all your deductions or your loopholes. And it's so interesting. I was looking at some of the polling, what Americans think of our tax system. And you know what word most came to mind when Americans think about our tax system? Rigged. They think it's rigged to the special interest groups and the politically powerful and the lobbyists. And you know what? They are right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So what is this about eliminating the estate tax? That's good. And 7 tax brackets down to 3.
Yep. Well, the estate tax, in my opinion, is the most immoral tax in our federal code. I think about people like my dad, who was a successful businessman, built up that business from scratch. When I was growing up, he was gone almost all the time, working 60 to 70 hours a week to build up that business. He paid his taxes every year. He paid a lifetime of taxes. He died a couple of years ago. But why should someone like that, after they pay a lifetime of taxes, they're successful? There's nothing wrong with being successful in America the last time I checked. Why should he then have 50% of his estate taken away from him? It's the American dream. You want to build up a business. You want to pass it on. Now, my dad gave a lot of it to charity and so on, but why shouldn't you be able to do what you want with your own money? Why should you have to pay a tax when you die? It's un-American.
And the other component part of this is you mentioned eliminating some of the deductions. Specifically, particularly for high-tax states at the local and state level, like Illinois, California, New York, eliminating that state and local tax deduction.
Yep. And that's always, to me, that's the worst deduction. Why in the world should people in Texas and Florida and Tennessee have to pay relatively more taxes? So people in these high-tax states, by the way, which tend to be the richer states, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, California, I would even put Illinois in that category. Why should we have to pay? I live in Virginia now. Why should I have to pay more taxes so, you guys can keep raising taxes in Illinois? By the way, there is no way in the world, no way in hell, that Illinois would be able to do that big, massive, $5 billion tax increase if the feds weren't picking up 40% of the charge. It's ridiculous. We shouldn't be subsidizing that.
But now the politics of this, because the best laid plans of mice and men run through Congress.
Yeah.
And so the question is, if this is just going to be what has been telegraphed, the need for 50 votes in the Senate, where are we in terms of handicapping some of our less courageous Republican senators?
So, Dan, you just got to the heart of the matter again. I mean, we can talk wonderfully. We're going to get rid of the death tax. We're going to get rid of the AMT. We're going to cut this rate and that rate. But ultimately, it still comes down to what you just said. It's just like on the healthcare debate. But hopefully, this has to have your ending. It now comes down to how do you get the 50 votes. But I got to tell you, I was in North Dakota yesterday. Ever been to Grand Forks, North Dakota?
No, I haven't.
I was out there yesterday talking to the petroleum industry out there because it's now the oil capital of the world. But my point, the reason I bring it up is, they were talking about some of the polls in North Dakota. 75% of the residents of North Dakota want this tax cut. Guess what? They have a senator named Heidi Heitkamp, who is a Democrat. I think we can get her vote. I think we can get the vote of the Indiana Democrat. I hate to tell you this, guys. I've written off your 2 Democratic senators. I don't think,
no, you don't think Durbin's going to get Durbin on board? Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys, I gotta run, but
good talk. Good talk.
And I think my prediction is we're going to get this done before Christmas. You heard it first. WIND.
Thanks very much for joining us, Steve. Appreciate it.
The guy's got to go.
Now, point of order, he also did predict that Obamacare repeal and replace would happen. So
Why do you have to bring that up?
just temper your
We're
brakes.
having such a good day.
I'm going to be guardedly optimistic, but I don't want to be unboundedly optimistic when
I
it comes
know.
to this GOP Senate as we've seen them perform.
And Stephen Moore joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio